Could you discuss the complications or benefits that you've seen in your practice with the starch-based diet with relation to irritable bowel disease, specifically Crohn's disease? Thank you.
What you're talking, I think you're talking about inflammatory bowel disease, which is
Yep.
Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. It's different than irritable bowel. Irritable bowel is constipation and diarrhea and cramps and all kinds of stuff. Inflammatory bowel disease is a very serious autoimmune disease. And I hate to keep referring you, but I will. If you go to YouTube, there's a lecture I gave on autoimmune diseases, and I discuss inflammatory bowel diseases. This is where the body attacks itself. Just like we've heard about recently about alopecia, loss of hair. You know what I'm talking about. The body attacks the hair follicles. And somewhere around 20-30% of women out there in their 40s, you've got autoimmune thyroiditis. The body attacks itself. You ask yourself, why would the body attack itself? This sounds really dumb. Well, there are some reasons the body attacks itself, and I go through these in the lecture. But I think what you want to hear is, can you resolve Crohn's disease or inflammatory bowel disease? And the answer is yes, you can. It's published in the scientific literature. Certainly not enough research has been. There's never enough research done on diet because there's no money behind it. This is just plain simple fact is money drives everything. How are you going to sell potatoes to people? When you can sell pills and shots that cost $70,000 a year. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. But yeah, if you change to a healthy diet, and that lecture on autoimmune diseases, which is on YouTube, just put in McDougall and autoimmune disease, that they'll show you the evidence behind it and the mechanisms and so on.
Thanks very much for that, Dr. McDougall. And now we're going to go on to Ainsley. Welcome, Ainsley.
Hi, everybody. Afternoon. Yes, doctor. Your potato debate. If we are to live on potatoes, I think the potato that you're talking about there is the yellow Yukon potato. My question is, what about the sweet purple potatoes? And if we are to live off potatoes, is it just boil with a pinch of salt, or oven bake it, microwave it, we can't deep fry it, but how to do our potatoes?
Well, that's been the criticism of potatoes. You hear some people, learned people, these people should know better, tell you that potatoes cause diabetes. Nonsense. French fried potatoes and potato chips cause diabetes, but not whole potatoes. And the science is clear on that. When you start to get into coloration of potatoes, the more colored they are, the more beta carotene and other carotenoids they supply. Although white potatoes do supply sufficient carotenoids to get by, again, you go to YouTube and you. In fact, let me just advertise, because I think it's a really fun lecture or discussion I did, and it's about Dr. Michael Greger and his concern about the McDougall diet being protein insufficient and beta carotene insufficient. And I spent an hour explaining why that ain't the case. You'll find that on YouTube. You just put in McDougall and Greger. But white potatoes are great. Like I say, you can, and people have by the millions lived on white potatoes. They've been studied under scientific conditions where people have been locked in metabolic wards for months at a time. In fact, Hinhede did an experiment where one of his subjects lived on potatoes for 1.5 years. But so you can, but the criticism is that more colorful potatoes are better because they have more carotenoids, more beta carotene. And I'm going to argue with that a little bit, but yeah, you're right. Sweet potatoes, if I was going to pick, sometimes I get asked, what would be the ideal diet? If all I was going to learn was just a few sentences from you, what could I live with most productively without reading anything more? You live on a diet of sweet potatoes and green and yellow vegetables, cooked. That would be the diet. 90% of the food comes from sweet potatoes. Boy, you're talking about a real powerful diet that is low enough in protein that it doesn't tax the body, doesn't tax the body. The problem with recommending even the amount consumed by the typical American is it burdens the liver and the kidneys and the bones and causes kidney stones. This is dangerous. And so I know I look at things a little different than other people do, but I'm here to tell you, my patients do well. I'm the luckiest doctor in the world. Is if you unburden your body of this stress, this metabolism of protein, excess protein, you'll do more good for your body than you can imagine. See, the body doesn't store protein. If it stored protein, we'd all look like Arnold Schwarzenegger used to look. It's stored in the muscles. So when you eat more protein than you need, you just need a tiny bit. You need maybe 3 to 5% of your calories as protein. When you eat more than you need, the body has to dispense with it. It has to get rid of it because it can't store it. So it goes through the liver, is metabolized a little, and then it is shunted through the kidneys. And before it gets to the kidneys, it breaks down into amino acids. And these acids, they dissolve the bones and cause osteoporosis. And these bones, they resolidify in the kidneys, and those are what are called kidney stones. And you cause wear and tear on the kidneys that push you towards kidney failure, particularly if you already lost kidney mass. So if I could correct one thing, if one nutrient came under my word to condemn it, it would be protein. It's done more damage to people and the planet than anything else. You have never met a person with protein deficiency ever, but you see people every day all around you who have problems of not only protein excess, but the foods that all this excess protein comes packaged in, like meat and eggs and cheese. But the protein itself, I mean, if you just stripped out the protein and you fed it, as some people recommend, as protein supplements, you'd be dealing with something that's toxic. Anyway, there's a whole lecture. I gave a 4-hour lecture. It's on YouTube. You'll find it without any trouble at all. And I would also encourage you to go to our website, drmcdougall.com, to learn. We've got a lot of information there. And in fact, on the new website, mcdougallfoundation.org, mcdougallfoundation.org, I have some very, very powerful lectures. One was really addresses the subjects that were just asked. One is about how potatoes are the most important food that we have. In 4 hours, I talked about potatoes for 4 hours. And another one was just about how damaging protein is. 4 hours. You want the science, and believe me, I'll provide you the science. You want the rationale and the logic and things that you can observe. You don't have to believe me. You can see it. Attend both of those lectures. They're free. They're at mcdougallfoundation.org.
Thanks, Dr. McDougall. Up next, we have Kathy. Welcome, Kathy.
Hey, hi there. Hi, Dr. McDougall. So I got introduced to you by Chef AJ. And
Kathy, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if you sound a little muffled. Anything you can do about that?
Oh, talk closer to my mouthpiece. Can you hear me better now?
That's a little bit better. Thank you.
Wow. I'm in a gym. And actually, that's one of the things that I was going to tell Dr. McDougall is that ever since I started listening to him and Chef AJ and several of the other doctors that she follows, I have changed my lifestyle from a couch potato to more active. So thank you, Dr. McDougall. There's a couple of things, though, that I want to tell you about. So in the last 3 months, I've lost 40 pounds.
Wow.
I've gone from a 3X to a 1X in size. When I brush my teeth at night, I don't have any of that film on my teeth because I'm eating plant-based. The problem, though, is that my glucose went up my last lab reading, and my thyroid meds are way off. So, what do you do? How should I approach that? I mean, I'm eating a lot of sweet potatoes, and maybe I shouldn't be. I was pre-diabetic, I think. They never told me. Doctors never said this to me, but my A1C.
Well, I'm going to be giving a lecture on Easter Sunday on diabetes and how you cure it. So I'll be presenting in a couple hours if you'll attend on my lecture coming up this Sunday. I believe it's the 17th. Anyways, it's Easter Sunday. So
sweet potatoes. Do you think that sweet potatoes are have anything to do with my glucose readings, or do you
No,
think that
no,
that's all part of just my body adjusting?
It's what happens is when you eat, your blood sugar goes up, but what you want to do is you want to cure the disease, so you don't have diabetes anymore, and that's what switching to a starch-based diet does. How often are type 2 diabetics cured by following a starch-based diet and associated weight loss? How often are they cured? 100%. By definition, they're always cured. And I'll talk to you about that on, that's type 2. That's not type 1 or type 1.5. We'll talk about all that on Easter Sunday on the lecture. I think you asked something about thyroid. How do you take care of your thyroid? Well, thyroid problems are really common. And a lot of people are on thyroid medication, and most I find need to be on the medication, but a lot were put on because they were tired or they thought a thyroid would cause them to lose weight, and so the doctor put them on it. But if you need thyroid, you need thyroid. This is a very safe supplement. It is a supplement. It takes and replaces the thyroid hormone that your gland lost. Now, what kind of thyroid do I prescribe? This shouldn't surprise you folks. I prescribe Synthroid, levothyroxine, the fake stuff. Why do I prescribe that? Well, because the natural thyroid is made from the thyroid glands of cows and pigs. As a result, you have to worry about the microbes, the viruses, the prions, et cetera, that were in the thyroid glands that you're now eating as a thyroid supplement. Just put your nose in the bottle and smell it. It'll make you switch to Synthroid for sure. Anyway, if the thyroid, this lecture on autoimmune diseases talks about how you develop autoimmune thyroiditis, which is the condition most of you have, which your doctor told you you had. But you're going to have to take a supplement if you need it. And that's based on your TSH level.
Thanks very much for that, Doctor. And up next, we have Rebecca. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you. Speaking of thyroid, my question was, does soy have any negative impacts on the thyroid?
I not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's some theoretical stuff out there about interference of thyroid hormone by eating high soy diets. I did a review on that one time, and I know I came to the conclusion that this is, mostly a theoretical thing, something based on some chemical formulas, but not real people's lives, not people eating soybeans or drinking soy milk or tofu and ending up with any particular problems. No, I've never seen it. I've never seen any research that shows that it really happens to any extent in people. They're called goitrogens, and they're in cruciferous vegetables primarily. But also these goitrogens are in thyroid, and they're chemicals that block the activity of your thyroid gland, but they're so weak, it's just not a problem. It's another one of those dangerous distractions that keep you from focusing on the problem. The problem is the food. The problem is the animals you're eating and the oils you're taking in. That's why you're in trouble. And the solution is to just put starch on your plate. That's where your calories should come from. You're a starch eater. And if the fact that 99.999% of the people who ever walked this earth obtained the bulk of their calories from starch, if that doesn't convince you, I don't know what will. Unfortunately, and I'm sure this is mentioned a lot during these conference days, is industry has a lot to do with skewing the information to sell products. Well, I'm here to tell you that that you gotta examine the speaker pretty carefully too, because a lot of doctors can't talk beyond their own dinner plate. Not necessarily in this conference, but when you're out in the real world, when you hear people talking about some things, you ought to look at what they appear to be as far as their health goes. And, I believe you recommend meat and dairy and oil. I believe it. I can see you. It ain't no surprise, folks. Anyway, there's a lot of bias. People love their own food, whatever it is that they eat, they think is right. They can't see beyond their own dinner plate. The doctor is confused. In one hand, he has a paper that says eating meat will kill you, will give you a heart attack and a stroke and cancer. That's in one hand. The other hand, he's got a fork that's stabbing the bacon and shoving it in his mouth. He says, something's wrong here. I must be confused. Anyway, be careful. But you could, what I tried to present to you were things that you don't have to believe, you can see it. You know, when I talk about the Aztecs and the Mayans, you all learned they were the people of the corn. You've lived long enough to remember when Asians lived on rice before 1980. In China, there was virtually no type 2 diabetes and no obesity. Now in China, a full 12% of the Chinese people have real diabetes and half are pre-diabetic. What happened in 40 years? What happened? They got cable news. They got advertisements. They got mass transportation of everything that Americans eat over to China. You've seen this. You know this. You've looked up the calorie count of a potato. You find a potato is 110 calories. What is a teaspoon of oil is 125 calories of calories. You know this. Just stop letting people lead you wrong in the wrong direction. This is simple. The truth is simple and easy to understand. It's simple. It's cost-free. Does no harm to anybody or anything. It's just positive, and the reason that it ought to be positive, and it should be from every point of view, from the point of view of your religion, for your concern about animals' welfare, from your concern about the environment, from avoiding viral infections, from whatever ailments you're seeing the doctor for. It all has to come up positive as it's true. This is true. And as soon as you start eating a starch-based diet, as 99.99% of people ever walk this earth did, as soon as you do that, as soon as you get that in your mind, everything makes sense. And you lose the 40 pounds, just like one of our callers talked about, in 3 months. This is typical. You should expect these results. You know how on Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers, they give you an example of people and they say this is the best case scenario, don't expect these results. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you follow my advice, you should expect these results because you're going to get it. You're going to get it as often as you'd expect somebody who quits smoking cigarettes to stop coughing, or an alcoholic to stop falling down. How often does that happen? When they stop the booze and they stop the tobacco. How often do they fail to get better? The answer is never. So hold me to it. Write me a note. Tell me, oh, Dr. McDougall, I listened to all your stuff and it sounded so good, but it didn't work. I don't think so.